Do you think America is sicker than ever these days?
It is sicker. We're the sickest country in the world. We have the highest chronic disease burden in the world. And that's one of the reasons during COVID, we had 19% of the COVID deaths in our country, and we only have 4.2% of the world's population. And so the question is, why did America do worse than any country in the world in COVID? Was it mismanagement? Part of it was that, but the big part, and this is what CDC says, we're the sickest country in the world. The average American who died from COVID had 3.8 chronic diseases. And that's really what was killing them. It was very hard to die from COVID if you were healthy. And so, we need to get Americans healthy. We need to end the chronic disease epidemic. Right now, we spend 2 to 3 times on our health care per capita what they spend in Europe. And yet we have the worst health outcomes in the world. We're 79.
Bring that up. Bring up a capita chart if you can.
We have we've dropped behind Europe by 6 years in lifespan, 10 years in some cases. And yet our health outcomes are worse. We have the highest maternal immunity, highest maternal mortality. That means women dying in childbirth in the developed world. We have the highest infant mortality. How could that be with the United States? And a lot of it is because of chronic disease. And then, our diabetes rates. When I was a kid, a typical pediatrician would see one case of diabetes juvenile diabetes over a 40 or 50-year career. Today, 38% of American teens is diabetic or pre-diabetic. God, it was unknown. Autism rates have gone from less than 1 in 10,000 in 1970 to 1 in 31 today.
Oh, yeah. You can throw a rock and hit an autistic kid anywhere.
And California is 1 in every 19 kids, 1 in every 12.5 boys. And so the cost to our country, 77% of American kids can't qualify for military service.
How many percent?
77% cannot get into the military because of health reasons. No.
What?
That is the truth. Yeah. And
oh my God, bro. That's insane.
Yeah. That should get people's attention.
Bring that up. Is that true? Let me see if that's true. Bobby probably just uploaded this stat onto the internet from his phone a second ago, but still, that's okay. That's how it works. 77% of American youth can't qualify for military service.
Yeah.
And why?
Because they have chronic disease. They have asthma. They have diabetes. They have, they're obese. One of those. But when my uncle was president, I was a 10-year-old kid. We spent 0 on chronic disease in this country, 0. Today we spend $4.3 trillion a year, and it's about 40 cents out of every tax dollar that is paid by you to the federal government is now going to treat chronic disease, and it's unsustainable, and it's getting worse every year. So,
and is it? Do you find that it falls more on it's the responsibility of the individual? We're not taking care of ourselves, or is it that we have a health system that is allowing, I don't want to just say foods and drugs, but allowing things into us that is not maintaining our natural health?
Yeah, does that question individuals have a responsibility, but the obesity, when I was a kid, 5% of children were obese.
Yeah, you had one kind of fat kid in your class.
Yeah, and today it's 15%. It's going overweight is 40%. Adults, it's even higher.
Well, we should just have a thick military then, I think.
But Americans did not get obese because they're indolent or lazy or they don't want to do exercise. They got that way because they're being mass poisoned. And they're being mass poisoned because the government lied to them, and it lied about the food. 70% of the food that our kids eat is ultra-processed food, and it's just poison. It's not food, it's just poison.
And which agencies allowed that? I mean, the EPA puts labels on the FDA.
Yeah.
So do you feel like that's been one of the most compromised agencies?
Yeah, it was owned by Big Pharma and Big Food. And Marty McCary has changed that now.
So how do we know that that's changed? Like, how do we
look at the food pyramid. The food pyramid, when I came into office, we were supposed to publish It was in January of last year.
Oh, yeah. The last food pyramid I saw had vapes on it. So it was getting pretty bad.
We're doing vapes now. You mean the food pyramid?
Oh, the last one. Yeah. The one that, a few years ago.
That's funny.
I was like, this is getting bad.
But the food pyramid, so when I came in, we were, the Biden administration had prepared new dietary guidelines. And they were 453 pages long. And they were completely driven by the same mercantile impulses that put Fruit Loops at the top of the food pyramid. How do you put Fruit Loops, which is not a food, at the top of the food pyramid? It's just poison.
Yeah.
But it was all driven by the commercial interests of the companies that controlled FDA. So when we came in, we got the best nutritionists from the best universities in our country. We basically locked them in a room. We thought it would take a month, but it took about 11 months. They fought over every single item on this in the food pyramid.
It took them 11 months to put this together?
Yeah, because you have to go over science. What is broccoli?
Right.
How does it relate to how much protein should you eat? How much saturated fat should you eat? What's optimal? And so they had to go through tens of thousands of scientific papers to make sure that every recommendation that we made is based solidly on a foundation of gold standard science.
So for this, for them to create the food pyramid, it took 11 months.
Yeah, and then we flipped it over.
Right.
So and we flipped it over because the category of food that you should eat, most, is a broad category. It includes vegetables, it includes proteins, salmon and steak and
most of this
meat.
is for children, right?
Well, no, this is good for everybody. I mean, most diabetes.
I remember from like when I was a kid, you would see it,
Yeah, right.
But I guess that's the first point you learn about it.
That's why we're all so screwed up. But most diabetes can be cured through diet. And the doctors don't know this because most of them aren't taking nutrition in medical school. And we're now requiring, or we're working with the accreditors and with the testing, the people who do the MCAT to make sure there's tests on nutrition. We're working with all the medical colleges to make sure that now doctors are going to have 40 hours of nutrition in school. 80% of doctors say they do not feel competent to give nutrition advice. So what are they learning? They're learning pharmacology.
Right.
They're learning the pill. You let everybody get sick from eating the food and then tell them the pill that will treat that sickness.
Yeah, at that point, you're just a drug dealer.
And you can get rid of the diagnosis. Not only that, but now, there's really clear science that you can get rid of mental health diagnoses, that food can cure mental health problems. There's a doctor at Harvard, Dr. Pollan, who has cured schizophrenia with dietary changes, with keto diets. There's a paper that
Bring that up. Is that true?
Yeah, go ahead and look it up.
Cure schizophrenia with keto diets?
Yeah.
Well, I definitely notice that when I'm fasting, I'm pretty smart.
Yeah, you get smarter, right?
Yeah. Preliminary clinical findings, including case reports and small traits, suggest that ketogenic therapy may improve positive and negative symptoms, cognitive performance outcomes in individuals with schizophrenia spectrum disorders. I mean, I believe that so much of this is true, just that so much of it is how we are operating. It just feels like we've been stuck in such a place where you have you have a food industry that doesn't care if you're healthy, and then you have a healthcare industry that doesn't care if you get well.
Well, everybody's making money from us being sick. And I'll say one other thing about this. There are dozens and dozens of studies, and you can look them up, they're case-controlled studies of juvenile detention facilities and prisons where they change, for example, in one wing, the diet to real food, and they leave the other diet in there, and that the fighting, the violence drops precipitously. The use of restraints in one juvenile detention facility dropped by 75%. Usually the violence drops by 40 or 50%. And, people, it caused depression, it caused anxiety, these foods. If your kid has anxiety, look at what they're eating. Mm-hmm. And you can change that in many cases by changing their diet and getting them to eat real food.